Wow. Welcome back, friends. Thank you for joining me today. You may recall I've mentioned on previous videos that much of what is being shared here is not premeditated. It's certainly not scripted. For reasons I shan't go into in this moment. Today's video will be slightly different in the sense of answering a question that's been on my mind for the last few days. And that's the question of resilience. More to the point, what is it? What does it mean? A very good visual representation of this surrounds me at the moment in the place I find myself, in natural environments where you see trees blown down and disrupted, broken, damaged from the storms. And we get a fair amount of those here in Wales, which is why everything looks kind of rugged. And they sort of grow like that. And you see these trees that have been knocked over and continue just growing sideways and then upwards, and some of them just continue growing sideways. It's amazing. And in a nutshell, that's resilience. It's to accept one's own nature in spite of all of the hardships that may present themselves in life. And they do, and there are many, and we all have to face them. But they're here precisely as opportunities and invitations for growth. They're not here to hold us back, as much as it may seem that way. And I find myself in a position right now where my life circumstances have changed in many ways over the last few months. Some planned, some less so. Sorry about the wind. And one of my parents happens to be halfway across the world, living in a part of the world that I presently don't have the means to be able to get to, with various health circumstances that I shan't go into in this video, but let's say they're reasonably, by most people's standards, considered to be quite severe. And that presents a challenge, because on the one hand, I could say I'm absolutely powerless to do anything about it, given my circumstances. But on the other hand, that's not true. Because what's happening is it's an invitation for me to grow into the things that I speak of on this channel, and the things that I speak of to the people I work with, the things I speak of in life in general. And it's great, it's easy for us, all of us, to give words of advice when we're in a good place. It's much harder for us to take our own advice when our circumstances change and become more difficult. And that's really when the work starts. You know, those in spiritual traditions will say that the work begins when you leave your meditation cushion, not when you sit on it. And there's some truth in that, I feel. So resilience in this moment to me is to recognize that the circumstances surrounding me may appear challenging, but that I have an opportunity to do one of two things, as I see it. The first is to focus on my powerlessness to focus on the fact as it appears that I can't do anything about the situation at the moment, and I don't know how things are going to pan out. And to be drawn into that, to be troubled by it, and to neglect myself as a result of it, which I've done many times. I'm sure many of you have also been familiar with. But also, I can recognize that my ability to respond to situations resourcefully depends on me being able to detach from those situations, even if it's for a moment, to see that in the grand scheme of things, they are but a part of the unfolding of my life story and of the stories of those whose lives are affected by the things which are going on. And that whilst it seems tempting, and the narrative for many people is to jump in with both feet and focus exclusively on the thing which seems to be the most problematic until it's resolved, the reality is that that's a very depleting way of approaching the situation. Because I can only respond resourcefully when I have the resources myself. And so, from time to time, what that means is I have to put the oxygen mask on me. And it doesn't mean that I take it off of anybody else, assuming they're already wearing it, physically or metaphorically. But it means I have to acknowledge I have needs as well, and that I can't serve anyone. None of us can, if our cups are empty, or if they're overflowing because we're overwhelmed. So resilience, my definition of resilience at least, is probably not the textbook definition that you find on the internet. May not be the commonly held opinion that many people have. But why should it be? It's not our ability to deal with hard times necessarily that makes us resilient. It's our ability to see that whilst times may be hard, we don't need to be hard on ourselves. And I'll be the first to admit there are many different ways that I could have made different decisions in the past which may have had some impact on how I perceive what's unfolding at the moment, but I can't change that. Being hard on myself isn't going to change it either. If anything, it's going to make it worse. What's useful is recognizing that there's a part of me that is infinitely resourceful and creative, but it can only be infinitely resourceful and creative when there's space for it to do so. And as long as I'm putting pressure on myself to find a solution, or to solve other people's problems, that's not the case. And I feel this is one of the most important things I can share with you, especially as it's so current and relevant to my life experience right now, is that we are, all of us, far more resilient than we give ourselves credit for, and far more resilient than we're told by what we may consider to be sources of authority. And it doesn't mean that we never struggle. It doesn't mean that things are never hard and that at times we don't question our ability to rise to the occasion and handle, overcome, manage the circumstances which are in front of us. It doesn't mean that we don't have those moments of doubt. Certainly not in my experience. But it just means that we give them a degree of relativity. They become relative to everything else that we have and can experience. They don't become the entirety of it, and they don't define us. And so whatever the outcome is, whether it's an outcome I want to see or not, all I can do is to continue staying open to the best of my ability and find as much resourcefulness as I can to do what I can in the moment. Hello. Good day.
Just ignore him.
It's all right. And because I know it's possible, I know it's possible for you. That's the thing, there's so many people out there teaching us how to overcome things who haven't really overcome them. People teaching us techniques and steps and tips and coping mechanisms who aren't applying those things on their own lives, or who are applying those things in their own lives and they're not working. Are those the kind of teachers that we need? The kind of people that we should follow? People that we should give credibility to or authority to? I'm not so sure. And you're free to make your own decisions. It's not for me to tell anyone that they're doing anything wrong. But I think if we want to tread a path that leads us to the outcome we desire, then maybe it's useful for us to work around or surround ourselves with or listen to those who are living what they're sharing. And I don't just mean me, I mean anyone. And if you happen to be one of those people, consider that that's a tremendous value that society may not recognize right now, but as we become ever increasingly dependent on technology and ever more disconnected, that's the word, it will become valuable. Guarantee that. So this is an investment which will serve you well, if not financially, then in your ability to provide service to your community and your family and the people around you. And that's not to be undervalued. So that's my take on resilience. I hope there's some value in that for you. And if there is, then as always, I'd appreciate it if you could let me know and let the machine know, because that machine stands between us and doesn't really care what value you get from this, nor does it really care what I say, because it's a machine. What it cares about is interaction. And what I care about is interaction as well, because that tells me I'm doing something that's helpful. So please let me know. And it allows me to continue doing more of the same. But in the meantime, as I say, don't discredit your own ability to be able to rise above your circumstances, because every one of us can. And if you'd like a little bit more of a direct way of approaching that, then do feel free to get in touch. Otherwise, see you on the next one. Thanks for joining me.